everyone, this is Debbie from Delta CX. Welcome low ego action heroes. This is the time of the week when I hang out here for an hour and take your questions for an hour. You can ask your questions like this. We have an anonymous URL where if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can go to deltacx.link/AMA and it'll come into my email. Or, of course, if you are in LinkedIn or YouTube, you can ask in the chat. And I'm going to set up my windows now so I can monitor the chat. Meanwhile, as we wait for people, please tell me how you've been and how you're feeling and what's going on. Tell me all the things. We're just getting started. Usually it takes a good few minutes for people to show up, dust the sleep out of their eyes, and get ready for the stream and have some questions for me. So remember, questions are available at any time. So just let me know. Happy to answer questions. I'm going to just set up my chat stuff. Hello to the 4 people on LinkedIn. Nobody on YouTube yet. Oh, YouTube is acting like it is not streaming. I'm not streaming to YouTube? What happened? Looks like I'm having a tough YouTube day. If this doesn't clear up, I will stop and start over again. Because most of my viewers are in YouTube. So if YouTube doesn't know I'm streaming, that's not good. No, it says upcoming. When does it think I'm doing this? To watching. Oh, okay. I'm live. Hi, YouTubers. Are you here? Okay, I'm getting there. Sorry, people. I'm piecing this together. Looks like we are online. So again, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. This is Debbie from Delta CX, and I am happy to take any questions you have, especially if they are about CX or UX. I will be checking the chats for the questions, and let's see if YouTube is alive now. Hello, Faisal. How are you doing? Trying to get all the pieces ready for action. Does anybody have any questions? Sometimes it takes some minutes to get this cooking. Hey Monique, Debbie said I'm live and loud and clear. Super. Okay, so I'm glad that's working. Wah, wah. See if I can get some other pieces working here. Okay, so let's see. We've got a question from Harshit. Let's copy and paste that into the document that we use for the YouTube archive. So let's take a look. The question is, hey Debbie, some beginner steps into UX research would be appreciated. Like what questions should be asked for the purpose of qualitative surveys and how to structure it for the best findings? Okay, interesting question. So number 1, I would definitely recommend taking a look at our podcast on surveys, because if you're specifically interested in surveys, then I'm going to specifically drive you to our podcast on surveys. If you go into the playlist and you look up live stream podcasts, you will find episode 51, surveys, easy to run, but there's a catch. That might help you. The problem with surveys is that they are generally aimed towards quantitative but not qualitative. The way to try to get at qualitative is, of course, by asking more open-ended questions. So rather than limiting people to checkboxes and radio buttons and some of these types of things, you would then just have a lot more open answers. But the problem is that is still limiting and can be flawed, because you're limited by who felt like typing all that. Were they on their phone? Did they really type what they were thinking? Did they tell you the truth? It's different than when you talk to someone and you can get a feeling for, are they telling me the truth, or are they telling me the whole story? So I think that it would be important to consider that surveys are generally better for quantitative, and while there is some qualitative data that we can collect from it, it's usually not the best way to go. Also, if you are thinking about beginner UX stuff for research, I do recommend, let's see if I can get this cooking now. I do recommend, not yet, curiositytank.com. Michelle does a bunch of really lovely courses. They're not free, but they are good. And I would always prefer good over free. I think they're fairly priced, and I hear very good things about them from people who've taken them. So I think if you want to learn research from a pro, you are looking at the courses at curiositytank.com. That would be my suggestion. Now, we also have 2 questions coming in anonymously, and then we have Kip Journal in the YouTube. So I promise we will get to everybody. Let me start with the questions that came in anonymously. And Harshit, I hope that helps you. If you have a follow-up question, please type it. I'm always happy to get follow-up questions from the person who asked, or even from somebody else who has a follow-up question to someone else. That is always, always welcome. So, because we are free and easy here. So let's take a look at the first anonymous question of the day. Hi, Debbie. What advice do you have for someone who's new to working with agile teams? I started a UX job that's much different than my last one, going from a startup to a mid-sized company, and I'm trying to learn and adjust to how everyone works together. I'm so used to silos. I need advice. That's good. The good news is I'm glad you're reaching out for help. The bad news is Agile and UX don't play together fantastically. There's a lot of not totally agile things that people do in Agile that can really mess with what we're trying to do. So I would say I can certainly recommend my podcast on Agile to give you a little bit of a foundational knowledge of some of the good ways that these things can work together. But I don't know. I mean, to me, the best course on that is mine. The best book on that is mine. Hi, Maggie P. PB. But I don't have a great answer to that. I would probably just say start with my podcast on Agile, and let me find what number that is, and then maybe you can ask me follow-up questions that you have. You know, you can always find me privately, and of course you can always find me in the Delta CX, where am I? Delta CX Slack. Remember, that's free to join. There is no membership fee. There's no sneaky thing I sell you later. deltacx.link/join Slack. I think we have about 260 people there. It's still small. We're still working on community building and finding our voice, but we welcome more people there, and I always want to see questions there. So please join our Slack community if you can. And of course, my boyfriend wrote these jokes. Please, YouTubers, usability test the subscribe button and the bell, and won't you please empathize with the like button and show the like button your empathy so that we can tell YouTube the algorithm to please send me out there more.
Thanks for watching.
Oh, I hit the wrong button.
Delta CX is available for consult.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I'm trying my new system here. Let me pick it up and show it to everybody because I think some of you are curious about my system. So I set up everything on my Surface Pro. This is some of my remote controls for the show. And obviously I had play the video button way too close to take off the request for subscription button. So I will have to fix that. But you know, it's iterative. That's the great thing about UX is it's iterative. Agile. Agile is also hard because there are different flavors of it, and I don't know which flavor you're in. Some of them are a little bit more welcoming to UX, but a lot of them are not. Many of them have read the Lean UX book and think the best way to do UX is to have no UX people and everybody stabbing at it in group workshops. So I don't have a great answer for you, anonymous person, but I hope this has been helpful in some way. Kip and Harshit, I see your questions. I will get to them. Let's get to our next anonymous question. Newbie product designer here. Welcome, Newbie. How can I learn more about how data can impact design decisions? I'm newer to actually using data and come from a visual UI background. Ooh, that's a good question. I think there are some books on this, but I have not read them. But I feel like I've seen the titles go by. So I'm not too sure what some of the better books are. Do you guys have any suggestions for this person who's asking a question about making decisions based on better data? Ultimately, I'll give you some of my answer, even though I don't have a... oh, I read the question wrong. I'm so sorry. Harshit says I read his question wrong. I mean, are you his? I'm sorry, I can't see faces. Person question wrong. I'll get back to Harshit in a moment. I'm sorry I messed that up. Moving a little too fast, and I'm juggling a lot of windows here. As you can see, I'm pressing some wrong buttons today, and I'm sorry I got your question wrong. No, you wrote quantitative surveys. Oh, and then I said qualitative. Okay, back to you in a moment, Harshit. So for the question we have now from the product designer about data impacting design decisions, remember that everything is impacting a design decision. The data we have impacts it. The data we don't have impacts it. The things we're guessing at that we're pretending our data impacts it. Very often at a company you'll hear, we don't have to do research. We know what our users want and what they like. That's fake data, and it's going to impact a design decision. So I think the best thing that you can do, and in addition to any good books there might be out there, and I'm sorry I don't know any in particular, is work on focusing on the importance of research. Because ultimately, if you have a company that says, oh, UX people, just sketch some screens, or, hey, we know what people want, just make this thing. That's going to affect decisions in a lot of negative ways, and I remind people that's going to create risk. And part of the reason we're here is to predict risk, mitigate risk, keep our company away from risk. So when I see data-driven decisions, the downside to it, thank you, Harshit. On my chat system, I only see icons for whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube. I don't see pictures. So the downside for data-driven decisions is sometimes someone will run a survey, and I was just complaining about surveys, and they'll say, oh yeah, we ran a survey and we asked people if they want this thing, and 70% said they want it, so let's build it. Now that seems like a data-driven decision, but the problem is that surveys are usually quite flawed. People don't always tell the truth, or you're asking them to guess something they're going to do in the future for a product they can't see right now, so it's a double guess. So we have to be careful about data-driven decisions because sometimes the data is crap, and so the decision is terrible. And sometimes the data is made up or guessed at and pretending to be data, and the decision is also terrible. So even if you have a book on that, I don't know if it's going to say that. So I would say just learn as much as you can about research and replacing crappy surveys, replacing crappy guesses with good research that tell us, aha, we really got to know our target customers. This is who they are. These are their tasks. This is what they understand. This is what they don't understand. This is what they need. Here's the direction we should go in. So I would say do more studying about UX research. I, again, suggest Michelle Ronson's courses over at curiositytank.com. I do not get paid to recommend those. I just recommend them because I know they're good. I didn't take them, but I know people who have. So check that out. We've got some questions waiting, but I got Harshit's question wrong, so I want to go back and fix that. And then we will get to Kip Journal. So let me make a note that I re-answered Harshit's question because I got it wrong. Okay, that'll be in the YouTube description. and then we'll get to Harshit. So, okay, let's reread Harshit's question because I got it wrong. Some beginner steps into UX research would be appreciated, like what questions should be asked for the purpose of quantitative surveys. So I said qualitative, and then I answered about qualitative, and he's right. So how do we structure a quantitative survey for the best findings? Now, this kind of goes with what I just said to our anonymous question person, which is that very often a quantitative survey doesn't give us good findings. To me, one of the best things you can get out of a quantitative survey is a hint of where you need to do qualitative studies. So, for example, like I just said, if we said, 70% of people feel this, or answered this, or claim they do this, or might do this in the future, you want to act on that? Are you sure? Are you sure you want to put your company at risk and jump into that because someone said yes in a survey? Think about how you answer surveys. Think about how people who just want to be nice and polite, many cultures are geared towards politeness. Would you like this? Yes, I would like this. Would you pay for this? Oh, sure, I would pay for this. So we have to remember that people don't always answer surveys honestly. And if we use that as the data from which we make decisions, we can incur a lot of risk. So, since Harshit is asking how do we look at quantitative surveys to structure it for the best findings, the best findings that you can do from a quantitative survey is to make sure you present the data. First of all, write your questions as well as you can, removing bias, removing slanted questions, leading questions. I got a survey the other day. I get surveys, they are so bad, I screenshot the questions and I go, really? Oh, I remember one of them was, it was from my American cell phone company, and I had marked that I don't really use their international long distance. And their next question was, what would make you more likely to use our international long distance? There were 5 choices, and none of them were nothing. I do not want to use your international long distance under any circumstances. They were all questions, and you had to pick one. They were all answers of, oh yeah, if it were better priced, if it were easier to do, if I understand it better. So that's a crap survey. And someone's going to pick an answer just to have filled out the survey. And now everyone's going to go, see, people will want our international long distance if we did this with it. You don't know. So you have to watch how you write the questions. You have to watch how you write your questions. You have to watch, and then when you're reporting on it, you have to make sure you explain to people, look, this is how people answered a survey, but think about your own survey taking, and people just sometimes are more polite than they are honest. So I feel like a survey is not always the place to get the best findings. Paul, you have a long question. You can send it to the, you can send it to the anonymous if you want. I don't think I have a limit there. So finally, Kip says, yes, I got my new system up. It only works on YouTube questions. Kip says, what's the quickest and most effective way to make personas? Kip, do you want them quick or do you want them effective? Pick one. And I'm serious. They can either be quick or they can be good. Which is more important? So let me answer both of that. The quickest way to make personas is to completely guess and make them up. That's quick. Is that effective? No. That's a bucket of shit. So that's the quickest way to make personas is to open up a persona template and completely guess. Absolutely make it up. Make it up. Go pick a nice stock photo, make it all up. That's the quickest. That is not the best. That's not the best way. I'm going to get some of the anonymous questions ready to answer after this one. So anonymous people, I see you. Oh, and someone else asked about personas. So I'll answer that one next. We've got another personas. Today's quote is a bucket of shit. Yeah, and I don't even have like a good, I can't set up, can I set off something for that? Like, you want fast personas? Great. They're going to be a bucket of shit. Because again, like we've been talking about, you are setting your company up for risk. You are setting your company up for bad decisions whenever we use bad data, flawed data, or made up crap. So please, please don't go for the fastest way to make personas. The most effective way to make personas is by doing observational studies and or interviews, is to watch people, talk to people. That's always the way that I've done it. I have so many amazing stories of beautiful sets of personas I've done, and they weren't beautiful because I used a great template, because y'all know I'm not an artist, but beautiful because they were so accurate and so effective. And Jason's giving us the poop emoji. Very good. I don't have a poop emoji among the effects that I've set up. We can work on that. So my personas, I'm proud of them, and I believe they're highly effective because they were made with such care. Because I interviewed piles of people, I met real people, and I was able to use the personas to tell the stories I heard. I didn't make up stories about these people. I heard the real stories, and I told the stories. And I just put them together. I found where the patterns naturally were, and I said, aha, some people are like this, some people are like this, and some people are like this. I also don't split them up by gender or by whether or not they're married. Or I'm really angry lately when I see this person is black and this person is white. Heads up, I don't design different for black people and white people because we're all people. So get rid of that crap. Bucket of shit. Kip, I hope you stuck around. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. But the most important thing about a set of personas, is to do them effectively and well. It is not good to do them quickly because that's going to set up our company for a lot of bad data and false information, and it's not going to be worth it. It's the kind of thing where someone's going to come into the company later and go, these are our personas. This is a bucket of shit. Now we have to redo these. So it's not going to be good. And believe me, I can look at a portfolio and I can tell shitty personas from good ones. So you're not going to fool, you may fool people who don't understand UX, but you're not going to fool seniors, veterans, hiring managers, etc. Now, there was another question that came in anonymously that happened to also be about personas. So I'm going to answer that one now because they're kind of connected. So someone says, my company's looking into creating personas. Well, we just started doing some research, but we're definitely stretched thin, in my opinion. There's plenty of talent and desire in the team, but again, we might be stretched thin. I fear we won't end up doing it right. There's been some talk on grabbing an agency or a third party to do it for us. Can you talk about the pros and cons of in-house versus agency personas in this scenario? Abso-smurfly. And first of all, if I can be a little bit biased for a moment here, may I just say, hello, my company is a full-service UX and CX agency. We would absolutely love to put in a bid on doing the interviews that go with your personas. So won't you please contact me at deltacx.com. So what's the pros and cons of an in-house team doing it versus outside? There are both. So the pros of the in-house team is, well, first of all, let me just say that as an outside agency, when I am doing personas, I normally expect, if it's an existing company with an existing customer base, I normally expect my client, you, to find me the people to talk to. Now, of course, that's garbage in, garbage out, so we'll collaborate on that to make sure you didn't pick a biased group of people. I'll want to review that. But typically, the client is sending me the people to talk to. Now, hypothetically, those are the same people you might pick to talk to, so it shouldn't be a completely different set. And if you have a good target group of people that I can talk to, there's no reason for me to recruit externally. So if you have someone who wants to recruit externally to make your personas, that's only okay if you're trying to capture a new audience where you really don't have them among your audience yet, or if you're a startup and you really don't have much of an audience yet, or if for some reason they're not going to be allowed to talk to your customers, like these are government, military, surgeons, somebody who's not going to give us time, then sometimes we recruit externally for people who match that profile. So, and I see Monique's question, so there will be more follow-ups about personas today. This is going to end up Personas Day. This is great. And Harshit, I see you also sent a follow-up, plus we've got questions coming in anonymously, so I'll do my best to juggle all these today. Everyone's questions will be answered before we're done, so please be patient. So what are the cons to the outside agency? I would say that an outside agency typically costs more. We usually bill more per hour, per day, per project than you're paying your internal team. So normally the biggest con to the outside agency is it can be the cost, which is why I would say get a quote from us, get a quote from a few other people, and take a look at the costs. Because sometimes they're fair and sometimes they're not fair. I try to price fair, but okay, so there's more questions about personas. This is great. It's going to be Personas Day. Obviously, pros for the agency is they're great for overflow work when you guys are stretched too thin. I can't speak to how other agencies do it. I can only speak to myself, but I would say that obviously we do a lot of very thorough interviews, sometimes observational studies to watch people do certain things to get to know them better. Depends on what you have. I've mostly done interviews and not observational studies. I always work with my clients on what those questions will be, so the discussion guide, so that's a collaboration. I don't surprise you later with here's what I asked your peeps. I record it. I make those recordings available to you, so you can always listen to them and check if you feel the interviews are done well, if they were done with bias, so there's quality control all along the way for as much as you have time to be part of that. I don't think there's a lot of cons to having an outside agency do it, because sometimes there's a real nice freshness to outside people talking to your customers. Sometimes if your internal researchers talk to customers, you can end up, depending upon who your researchers are and your customers, sometimes you end up a little bit on autopilot, where it's like, yeah, I know a lot about these people, blah, 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 yeah, blah, blah. So sometimes you get a little bit of extra freshness from an outside agency. I think both can certainly do a good job. If you have qualified people and you pick a good agency, they can both do an excellent job. To me, the only bad personas I've seen were mostly guessed at rather than made from excellent research. But I know how much research it can take, and people don't have time. There are times where I've interviewed 12, 15, 20, 30 people, and that's hours and hours of stuff, and then compiling what everybody said and things, so So I would say the main con is going to be price, because they're probably going to cost more than your internal people, but there's lots of pros, especially if you really can't free people up for this. And again, as we've been saying, personas are so mission critical, and they can be the foundation of so many decisions or thoughts or empathy or whatever. I think it's important to try to get those right. So I hope you'll get in touch privately, and maybe we can put in a proposal, and maybe we will surprise you with our fair pricing. So plug, deltacx.com. Let's get a couple of these follow-up questions about personas before I switch to some of the other stuff that is flying in the other ways. So let me just, because we've got a question about information architecture, which looks beautiful. We've got a question, personas. What? You kids, you all got together and said, let's all talk about personas today. Oh my gosh, look at all these questions about personas. So let me copy all these down. And sorry, the person who asked about information architecture, you're going to be kept for later, because I want to answer all the questions about personas together. Maggie says, how do you even vet if an agency is qualified? My company has some personas made from an agency, and they're horrible. It's like they use those bad templates. Yeah, it's like, to me, it's like any other job interview. I think that it's important to ask to see previous sets of personas, ask them to talk about how they made them, which I'm happy to do. So I would have to see what made those personas so horrible. And so yes, there are certainly, I guess that's another con, is sometimes agencies do terrible work, and that is extremely unfortunate. So it is important to try to vet them. How do you vet them is really tough. again, think of it as a job interview. Take a look at their work, take a look at their previous sets of personas. I'm not totally sure. I guess you just have to treat it like a job interview, really, and talk to them, see how they do it. Ask them their process in detail. See if they're flexible at all to adjust their process. If you have a preferred process, or if they go, no, that's how we do it. I don't know. I think that's probably the way I would treat it, is to make it like a job interview. Take a look at their past persona work. I don't know. I got a mountain of sets of personas. I could certainly show that. Let's answer more questions about personas. Kip is back, and Kip says, I watched a video of yours the other day, and you did say the same thing about not including race ethnicity in the persona. However, would you include it if the company focused on products for a specific ethnic group? Do you need to include it if we know the products are focused on a specific ethnic group? So let's say the products are going to be for black people. The persona can say they're black, but then hypothetically they might all be black, so that's just a given. That's not some sort of special thing we need to draw attention to in the persona. Everybody's going to be black, and the pictures we pick are going to be of black people. Maybe happy, maybe not happy. So yeah, you can write it on the persona if you want. The thing that I don't like is that I mention time and time again is sometimes you see people start out with these persona templates, and the template is like, make sure you have a man and a woman, and make sure you have a white person and a not white person. And I'm just like, that's when I'm like, this is crap, because I don't necessarily design differently for men and women. I have to end up designing one thing. I don't get to decide. I don't build things that say, ladies, click here. Men, click here. Because that would be I'd probably click on the men one, since I tend to prefer traditionally masculine things over traditionally feminine things. So I don't like when people start with a templating system that seems to separate out genders, or Maggie says bucket of shit. Genders. Are they a homeowner or not? Hands up, who's ever designed differently because someone rented an apartment or owned their own home? So again, just think about what's important in the persona to help your company understand who the target audience is. If they already know it's black people, all your personas are going to be black people. And that's beautiful. So you kind of don't need to call out that they're black. You could put it on there, but I'm mostly trying to warn people, especially UX newbies, against building persona sets where it's like, this person is white, and this person is, and I'm seeing more and more, multi-ethnic. It's like, I don't design differently for white people and non-white people. That sounds not quite right. Paul says, being a member of an ethnic group is not a behavioral attribute. Yeah, personas are usually about fears, motivations, needs, habits, tasks, and things like that. So, especially tasks. So, there you go. Let's see. Yes. I'm getting question. Abhi said information architecture versus I've got 2 information architecture questions, but let's make sure we get all our persona questions out of the way, and then we will talk about information architecture. And then someone who said English is not my first language, you sent a long question, and I'll get to you too. So I hope that is answering some questions. See if the other questions coming in are about personas. If not, we'll start answering the information architecture questions. All right. I think we're on a roll here. All right. Information architecture. Oh, and Monique's question. Thank you, Maggie. It did scroll up off my screen. So let's get Monique, who scrolled up off my screen. She says it's Persona Day. Monique says, what would you say is the difference between a marketing persona and a UX persona? Personas are common within marketing teams. Interesting to hear your take. Thank you. Let's get that and copy paste it into the questions answered today, especially after the in the persona universe. So thank you, Monique, for that. Sorry I almost missed it. Thanks to Maggie for helping out. You're hired. Marketing personas. Marketing personas tend to be more about demographics. They do tend to be more about, are people black, white, or other? Are they men, women, or other? Are they married, single, or other? Are they owning, renting, or other? How much money do they make in a year? So marketing personas tend to try to put people into buckets and categories by these predetermined things, usually on the assumption that people with these, and Paul says, don't forget mine. Paul, you had a question. Yours was about personas too. Paul, is it something you sent in to the anonymous thing, or is it something you pasted here? Because I don't see it, but sometimes my system blocks really long questions or any question with a domain name in it. So Paul, make sure you sent it here to the anonymous thing, because I am not seeing it. Yes. Yes to what? It's on the form. What form? Guys, no pronouns allowed. I don't know what you're looking at. You did. Paul, the questions I have from the anonymous are not about personas. Oh, and then we have COVID era question person. COVID era question person comes after information architecture questions. The link. I don't have a... Paul, I don't see it. Does anybody see Paul's question? Hold on. No, I don't have it. We're going to spend like 10 minutes just on this. I don't have time for this. I don't have time to have my arm ripped off. COVID era, personas, information architecture, and that's it. Paul, I don't see it. Paul, please resend it. Sorry about that. I don't know why I didn't get it, but it is not here. Back to everybody else. And Neha's here. Neha, how was school going? Your question will have to be at the end because we have a mountain of questions today, but I will stay late if we need to. Kip says, being part of a certain ethnic group can lead to certain behaviors because of how others may treat you due to bias. Is this outside of the sphere of UX? Kip, no. But whose behaviors are we looking at right now if there's bias? Are we looking at the behavior of the customer, or are we looking at the behavior of the people who are biased about the customer? So this is where this is getting very complicated. And I still have to answer Monique. So I'm doing my best to juggle this. Eventually I will hire someone who does this while I'm talking. But ultimately, Kip, if we are researching our personas correctly, then we are taking into account whatever their behaviors are. And remember, those behaviors may be individual. I don't want to say all white people do this. I don't want to say all black people do this. I don't want to say all Mexican people think this or need this. So remember, we don't want to have bias where we assume a certain ethnic group has certain behaviors. So that's something that we just want to double check in our research, because we may learn some fresh things around that, and they might still have the same behaviors, but we want to also get at some of their thoughts and needs around that. They might have different thoughts and needs, but similar behaviors. So remember, doing good research can tell us more. So how people react to you due to bias would be part of my research if it's relevant to whatever our company does. If our company is a nonprofit that deals with helping people who are in some negative situations, then it sounds like what you're talking about would be relevant. If my company makes cell phones, then I'm not sure that we would necessarily research how a certain ethnic group reacts to bias. So it really depends. So I can say in some cases we could research that, and in some cases it might not be relevant, or it might come up based on other research. So I can't totally say, oh, someone says they can see Paul's question on LinkedIn. I didn't get it in my system. So let me get through Monique's question and some of the other questions and circle back to Paul's question. So again, Monique was about marketing personas, and again, they tend to be more about demographics. They tend to be more about, you're in your 40s, so you know, that's it. That's all we need to know. All we need to know is Debbie's in her 40s, and we'll just assume she likes and does the things that women in their 40s like and do. And I've had that really bite me in the ass. I say that is lazy stuff. I remember I tried a product out a few years ago, and they claimed that they were going to use AI or machine learning or whatever was the flavor of the week to recommend e-commerce products to you based on your location and your age. I swear to you, this is exactly what happened. So at the time, I think I was 45 and I was living in San Francisco, and I put in 45 and San Francisco, and it came back with granny panties, as we say in American English, and robes. You know, like a robe. Basically, it treated me like I was a grandma at 45. And I was like, what a bucket of shit, are you kidding? So I find that sometimes marketing personas are kind of lazy because they see me as Debbie Levitt. She's in her 40s. She's female. She doesn't have kids. She doesn't own or rent a home. She lives with her boyfriend in his home. You know, and that's the way that they kind of just size me up, and then I get stupid emails. I can't tell you, I do a whole talk on this for marketers. I do a whole talk on, one of my slides is, my own bank, who should know a lot about me, sends me stupid emails about how it's back to school time. And my kids are in college, and my college kids are surely going to need some money to do their laundry. I purposefully had no children. Why am I getting these emails? Because I'm a woman of a certain age who they assume will have children or grandchildren or friends' children, and it's incredibly lazy. So I think the problem with marketing personas is they tend to be about these buckets that are sometimes predefined or based on lazy assumptions about what we think people do when they are of a certain gender or of a certain age group. I am just not into all of that stuff. Kip, I hope I helped. Please keep asking the follow-up questions. Maggie says, how do you leverage marketing demographic segments for creating UX personas? Sometimes I will start with the people that marketing said to figure out who I'm going to interview, and then I'll interview them, and then I will figure out who they really are. You know, not the lazy version, not Debbie's 40-something and doesn't have kids and makes X dollars a year and doesn't rent her house. So sometimes I have to start with marketing's information to decide who to meet, and then I do my interviews and I make my own personas, but sometimes they've got nothing to do with marketing personas. So that would be the main way I would leverage marketing's personas or demographic segments, is just to inform who I try to interview or who I ask the company to recruit for me to interview to build the personas. Because you got to start with something. If you have no personas, who do you meet? Well, you got to meet the target customers. Who are the target customers? Well, marketing thinks they know. Okay, we'll start with who marketing thinks they are. And sometimes we add to that, and sometimes we go, oh, you were the COVID question? Okay, so Paul was the COVID question. Let's look at the questions that we've got in their order and see where I am, because I think I'm at information architecture and COVID's after that. Yes, Monique says, thanks, Debbie and Maggie, joining our marketing team's persona workshop tomorrow morning. Yeah, that's going to be tough. So just be careful, because you're not going to be able to tell them to do something different. They are going to focus very much on gender, location, whether or not they own or rent a home, are they married or single, what's their ethnicity. That's how they put people into buckets. We put people into buckets more by behavior, task, motivation, mental model, fears, needs, and we kind of don't care how old you are. Because you could be 45 and you could be 18 and you could see things similarly and need similar things and react similarly. You're one persona. To marketing, you're two. So Monique, I would say you probably won't be able to fight it, but you probably won't like how it goes. There you go. So Paul, I do have your question. It was the one that said COVID era question. That's you. That's you. Oh, you're third on the list. And thanks for the people who are subscribing. I see someone with a beautiful Lithuanian name has just subscribed, so thank you. And which is a great time for me to remind everybody the best way you can support me is to please usability test the YouTube subscribe button and ring the bell so that you know when I'm live, which is usually 2 to 4 times a week. And won't you please empathize with the like button and tell the YouTube algorithm that you love Delta CX videos so that they will recommend them to more people. Back to the questions. We might run late today, but I promise to get to everybody. This is easy while I have under 1,000 subscribers. You know, what will this look like when there's a lot more people? Because we have 13 in YouTube and 6 on LinkedIn. I mean, what will this look like when we have 100 people live? But I say let's get there. So let's take a look at questions. Okay, let me flip back to my questions. Here we go. Information architecture. An anonymous person says, how do you begin to deconstruct or reconstruct information architecture during a redesign? Usually, I imagine that it's just not there. I usually don't try to deconstruct it or reconstruct it. Usually, I'm just doing fresh information architecture research or other research just to see what it should be. I usually don't try to polish poop. Or slightly rebuild poop. I usually am burning this stuff to the ground and starting fresh. So I would say where I would start with information architecture is if there's good research and there's good personas, then we've got that. And then I might start with content. Next, we need to do content analysis and strategy. What is on this? Let's say it's a website. What's on this site now? Is there anything we're removing? Is there anything we're changing? Is there anything we're adding? So what's our content map or strategy? Then I'll probably turn that into a card sort. And I know Neha had a question about card sort. So we're going to add Neha's question to our information architecture questions today. Then I'll usually do a card sort. The card sort will help me a little bit. And again, you have to do the card sort with the target audience that matches the personas. So remember, personas circle back for UX in that we try to match a lot of other things against those people. We use that for who we recruit for other research and testing. So if your personas are all about a certain ethnicity, then why are you asking that guy? You know, that guy doesn't match that guy. So you have to make sure, thank you for the subscription, someone else, thank you. Usability test, that subscribe button. So the personas swing back when we are doing our research and testing. So if I'm doing a card sort, I want to find people who match the personas to do the card sort. And then I will usually work on the new information architecture if it is like, say, a website navigation. And then I will usually do a tree test to see where it can be improved. So that's probably where I would start if we're talking about information architecture from the perspective of like a website or app or SaaS navigation. That's not the only type of information architecture, but since that's one of the most common things we tend to work on, I'm answering it from that perspective. But if I've messed it up, let me know like Harshit did, because when I mess it up, you should tell me. So that's that. Let's get some of the follow-up information architecture questions and then Paul's question. What is the difference between information architecture and sitemap? I was asking this and you said park it. All right, thanks. So thanks for parking it. I do have a video on YouTube all about information architecture, though again, I look at it from the perspective of kind of building a website navigation. Information architecture has to do with organization. It has to do with taxonomy, which is going to be categories and subcategories, things and sub-things or sub-things. So very often that's our navigation. Menus with submenus, pages with subpages. Very often, information architecture people might be working on like a product database. I met a woman at a conference years ago, and all she did all day was decide where in the product database with categories and metadata an item would go so that people would be able to find that item later. That is information architecture. So things related to organization, taxonomy, hierarchy, and also the user flow. That flow chart or that step-by-step process is typically part of information architecture, because based on the content we have and the process that people have to achieve, what's that organization? How are they going to walk through that step-by-step? And of course, a good process flow or user flow will warm you up for some good interaction design, because now you know what you're designing, in what order. So a sitemap could be information architecture if we are talking about the hierarchy and subpages and all of that of a website, app, or system. But a sitemap can be information architecture, but not all of information architecture is a sitemap. There's other things that are information architecture as well, like databases, like user flows. So I would say that's my answer to that. Let's take a look at the other information architecture question from Neha. Hey Debbie, what's the difference between information architecture and card sorting? Okay, so as I was saying, there's information architecture. It's a whole bunch of things. It could be your full-time job. Card sorting. I always eat right before this. Card sorting is one of the tasks that we can do within the universe of information architecture. So a card sort is, again, a task that we can do where we ask our target audience, usually matching our personas, to show how they would organize certain things, which gives us a clue as to how we should organize those things. So a card sort is a task that we can do within information architecture. So information architecture is the big thing. It's kind of a phase of UX. It's a group of tasks. It's a whole universe unto itself. And card sorting is just one thing we can do in the information architecture world. I hope that helps. Finally, I think we're getting to Paul's question. Wah, wah, wah. COVID era question. I've been contacted by a certain Fortune 200 company to develop a suite of personas. Paul, was this yours? This typically follows a fairly predictable path of tasks, but now when I'm unable to interview respondents face-to-face. Do you have some helpful hints at how I can read nonverbals via video link, or if there's some tips I really need to consider or avoid? This will be the first time I'm doing anything ethnographic via video. Paul, was that yours? I want to make sure I got it. I think that was yours. So thank you for waiting. It's kind of persona-y, and I didn't realize that, and we found our way back. Because it said COVID era, so I thought you were going to ask me something about COVID. Okay, so answering Paul's question, I have actually never done personas sitting in the room with someone. I have always done them over phone calls where I couldn't see them at all, and over Zoom calls where sometimes I see them and sometimes they will not share their camera. So for me, I also go by tone of voice, by where people pause, so there's a lot of things I read into what I hear. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm a musician and I'm just hearing things. Yes, I agree with you that the nonverbals are important, so I do try to get people to turn on Zoom, turn on their camera, and thank you for the subscription. Got 3 people. So I will try to get people to turn on their camera because I do want that nonverbal where possible. But I have done a lot of sets of personas when I could only talk to someone on the phone. And I had to listen in their voice for pauses, for being unsure about something, listen for a sigh and a, yeah, well, okay, now you got something there, you know. So I think the nonverbals are really important, and they are part of that that detective hat that we have to wear. But It's not that I think there's something to avoid. I think that it's good to do these through Zoom or some other thing where you can possibly get their video and possibly record it, so that you can watch it back later and look for anything you missed before, maybe pay closer attention to any of their facial expressions. But that's my main thing about nonverbals. If you can get a good face shot of people or head and shoulders, I think you can pick up enough about them. You know, eye rolling, face question, what I call question face, angry faces, or what I like to call New York sarcastic have a nice day. So I think there's a lot that you can judge from looking at people on a video call, and I do think that you can also really listen for things they do in their voice. Stress in voice, again, not everyone hears this. Stress in voice, change in register can also sometimes clue something. Sighs, deep breaths. These would be some of my thoughts. Peaches is back. Peaches! We've got a couple of other questions, Peaches, and then we'll get to you. Paul, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. I see you now here on LinkedIn, so I'm sorry, on YouTube. So if you ask it here, I should see it. We have a long question that came in anonymously, and remember, you can always ask your questions anonymously through this link, deltacx.link/AMA. It's available all week round, so if you want to ask a question during the week, I will answer it on Tuesday. It'll be one of the first, and if you can't make it, you can always watch these in the archive. Everything is archived on YouTube. Just go into the Office Hours playlist, and you'll see it all there. So, of course, please use Ability Test the subscribe button and show empathy for the like button. So, okay, new question, then Peaches. Hi, Debbie. I love your podcast. Thank you. As a UX professional who has little experience, it's really difficult to get people on board when it comes to UX activities. Not workshops, but interviews, heuristic evaluations, persona creations, user testing sessions. I'm trying to get a senior hired, but my company doesn't feel it necessary because they think I can do all the work. And I feel that I'm not doing a good job. My question, any ideas on how to convince my department that UX is a whole discipline and not just pretty images and cool prototypes? Yeah, you know, I only wrote a 384-page book about that. That's the hardest thing about UX is people don't understand what we do. And because they don't understand it leads to disrespect, confusion. Don't you just make cool prototypes, sketch pretty screens? Hey, you have time to do everything. This is often not easy, and I will also say sometimes this cannot be changed. Sometimes if you really have a whole organization that feels a certain way about a job, you can't change it. You know, if you worked at a racist organization, you probably couldn't change it. And so sometimes, warning, you might have to walk away. I think that there are some, to me, what I suggest are some of the ways to try to convince people to invest more in UX is to try to show them where they're going to save time and money in other areas. Because you say, hey, hire someone, and they go, hey, that's X tens of thousands of dollars that we've now got to spend. What's that for? Why can't you do it all? Well, first of all, you have to make sure your manager understands that you're spread too thin, that you're doing the job of multiple people, and that out in the real world, you know, companies have multiple people working in UX, especially where there's specialization. So thing one, you've got to raise the flag to your manager that you're being given more work than you can handle, and that means bring in more UX experts. No, it doesn't mean have a developer read a book about UX. That's not how this is done. But don't be surprised if they think that. Because again, when you don't understand UX and then you don't respect it, you think stupid things like, anybody can read a book about UX and then do it. And I go, well, that's great. Then I'll go read a book about Java programming and you'll let me code for customers, right? And then everyone's like, oh shit. Oh, no, don't let her do that. So magically, people think design's easy, and they think everything else at our company is highly difficult and complicated. And so people just haven't gotten on board. I also say you can show this clip to your manager. Feel free to send this to your manager. Manager, I'd love to talk to you. I do a whole training on helping companies understand UX and correctly integrate it, because when you get UX correctly integrated into a company, you're going to save a lot of time, money, and sanity over engineering building the wrong thing, over... Am I in the line? Harshit, you have another question? Some of these LinkedIn questions aren't coming in today. Your old question about surveys, I'm just seeing that now. The problem is my YouTube questions come up better. So Harshit, I'll get to you after some other peeps. Sorry. We'll just stay late today, everybody, if you don't mind. So person who asked the question, I don't have a short answer, because you're basically asking me, how do I get people I work with to understand and respect what I do when they don't understand or respect what I do? That's really hard. You know, I sometimes put that in the bucket with, how do you get an abusive friend or family member or person you're dating to treat you better? It's really hard. It sometimes rarely happens. So I would say start with your manager. I hope you have a good manager where you can talk to this person about that, tell them how you're overworked, but that the solution to that is to bring in more experts, because more experts here means saving time and money by not making certain mistakes, not burning time on engineering, not burning time on guessing what customers need, finding out we weren't quite right, having to redo it. So that's usually generally, in the short version, the way that I typically suggest selling UX is, yes, it's going to cost us a little bit more time and money here, but holy cats, the savings going to be exponential both internally for our company and externally when we don't piss customers off so much. So Harshit, you're now on the line, and Abhi, I'll put you at the end of the line, and we're all just going to stay late. Do I have an appointment after this? No, my appointment canceled. So there you go. We're all going to hang out. All right, next. Do. What's the best way to prioritize research questions when stakeholders have different opinions on what matters most in terms of understanding? Why is your stakeholder writing your research questions? No, really. You know, people always think they have to show stakeholders all of their work at every step and get their approval. And I think that's one problem that we kind of bring on ourselves in UX, is we want to be liked and we want to be understood. And instead of showing it to people and saying, this is what we're doing, we show it to people and we say, what do you think? Do you like it? Should I change it? What questions do you want? And so we have to be careful about that, and we have to find the balance. So what I would say to a stakeholder is, we're going to be doing some research. What are some key things you hope to learn about this group of people? So remember, I didn't say what questions would you ask or how would you ask them. And if they do phrase some questions, then you warm them up immediately. Well, you know, I might not ask it exactly like that, but that seems it seems fair to try to learn that about our customers. So I'll write a question or two around that, if the stakeholder's idea is good. But prime them right away that it might not come up exactly the way that they ask that. You know, that's usually not the way we ask these things in studies like this, but I'll rewrite it so that it's a better research question. So thing one, if the question is good, run with that. If the question is not good, you might have to warm them up for that. You might say, you know, that's the kind of thing that marketing sometimes asks people, but UX really doesn't ask people that because we just don't get honest answers from people. You know, and then hopefully you have enough knowledge to be able to explain that. Don't go into a long explanation, but just say, yeah, that's usually something we don't ask in research because we find that people aren't honest about that, or we find that they don't know if they would pay for something they've never seen. Very often a stakeholder wants to know things like, will they pay for it? Do they want this? And we say, well, you know, usually marketing loves to ask that, but UX really doesn't, because we realize we can't ask people to predict in the future whether or not they will want something or buy something that we can't even show them right now. So so I understand why you want to know that, stakeholder, but you know, that's probably not something we'd ask at this time. You know, this is research aimed at trying to get to know what customers need rather than pushing what we think on them. Oh, hey, Peaches. Peaches, I didn't even get, was that your question, Peaches? Peaches says, thank you. This new company I'm working at builds research roadmaps with data scientists, product experience analysts. I feel a bit insecure, like I have to make sure we're all in agreement. You know, to me, one of the biggest fallacies at companies where we work is get everyone aligned. Get everyone in agreement. And again, this is something that we do to ourselves in UX. I suggest my podcast on collaboration versus work done by committee versus democratization. Please look that one up in the old podcasts, episode 40 something maybe. We do this to ourselves. We want to be understood so badly, and we keep hearing get alignment. And so we show up to all these meetings and it's like, are you my mommy? You know, do you like this? Can you approve this? F that. We have to take our power back and say, I am the expert, I am the specialist, here's how we're doing this. There is such a difference between me showing up and say, here's how we're doing this, rather than, do you like this? Can everyone agree on this? It's really tough. And then that spirals us down. They lose trust for us. They go, wow, looks like Deb can't do her work without pulling us into everything and asking us what we think. Like, Deb, go do your freaking work. And we know that alignment is bullshit, because name another department at your company that is rushing to get your approval. Marketing? No. Engineering? So no. Product? No. Project? No. Stakeholders? Don't think so. So we have to remember, we are doing this to ourselves. Let's set this on fire, burn it to the ground. Stop doing this. Stop giving up your power and your autonomy, because then what's the next thing you're going to ask me? Deb, nobody at my job understands what I do. How do I evangelize UX? And then I go, okay, how do we get here? Now, I'm not saying it's your fault. Many times the company thought this before you got there. But it's really important for us to take our power and our autonomy back and stop asking everybody for their approval and their alignment. You are the expert. You are the specialist. You are making a research plan. You do not need everybody's approval. They don't ask your approval when they are making a plan. Got it? Kip says, when you attempt to take your power as an expert, that's assumed you already have respect that you didn't earn. That's a tough one, Kip. Why? Who said you have to earn respect? Do you respect me? How did you respect me? You heard me talk for 3 minutes and you said, she's not too full of shit. I like her. We have this idea that we have to show up to places and prove ourselves. Somehow we got the job. We got the job. Remember, when you get the job, you should have the respect. You are being brought in as the UX whatever, the UX researcher, the UX designer, the UX strategist, the UX whatever. You should have respect for what you do. Do you show up and go over to the developers and go, yeah, I'm new here. You're the developer. I don't really know you. I'm going to, you got to earn my respect, developer person. You got picked for the job. You got introduced to the team as the person who does this. You should pretend, you should imagine, you should know you have respect. Take your power back. I do not walk into any job imagining, what can I do to earn respect? And I did a talk over a year ago. I did an early version of my Stop Evangelizing UX talk, which I've since rewritten. And I talked about this very thing. And afterwards, a woman came up to me and she said, well, I'm trying to ease people into UX. Maybe I'll start with design thinking and maybe teach them UX later because, I really need to earn their respect. And I said, well, what role are you at this company? And she said, I'm the manager. And I said, on what planet did you imagine that you were the manager and you didn't have respect? And you had to earn that respect. You got the job. You are the manager. Own it. Show up and own it. And she said, oh my God, what have I done? Now, if we feel imposter syndrome-y, if we feel low confidence, if we feel whatever, you guys have to put on your acting face. Scene 1. You cannot show up and act like, will anyone approve what I'm doing? You're not going to earn respect like that. You're going to earn disrespect. You're going to go, man, they brought in Debbie and she doesn't know what she's doing. Debbie looks so unconfident. Man, maybe she doesn't know what she's doing. You show up and you earn it. Not earn it, you own it. No earning, owning. Ooh, Maggie, write that down. Maggie, you still here? No, she probably had to go to work. Own it. All y'all. Peaches. You with me, Peaches? I don't know where you are, Peaches. Do I know you, Peaches? It's a great name. All right, back to our questions, because some people have been waiting, like Harshit, who I owe like a nice dinner to. Okay? Harshit says, I generally use quantitative survey to confirm if the assumptions my team is having are right or wrong. Then I go for interviews to ask those questions around specific assumptions that came out during the survey. Harshit, skip the survey. If you want to know if the assumptions your team has are right or wrong, go talk to people. The survey is probably crap. Dump the survey. You don't need it. Waste of time. Too easily written badly. Too easily manipulated by the other people you're trying to prove stuff to. Go right to the interviews. Save time, save money. Skip the survey. Do the interviews. Kip says, holy shit, Debbie, this idea of owning it is so foreign. And Peaches says, with you. Come on, low ego action heroes. Kip, own it. Can you imagine if I went into a company and said, yeah, sometimes I do UX research. I talk to people. And then I, put together what they say and we get some good ideas from it. What do you think of me? Did I earn your respect? Now, I don't show up and bulldoze people and bring out my inner New Yorker, but I show up and I act like I know what I'm talking about. I use the right terms for things. I don't use Fisher-Price terms. I don't use baby terms like design thinking. I don't say, let's all do a workshop. I say, here's what I'm doing. Here's my plan. I always tell people, if you want to level up in UX, write a plan. Not only for yourself, but I mean like for your project. Start being more strategic. Now, not great for you juniors. You're not ready. But show up, have a plan. Make a plan. Have a strategy. You can do this. You do this. You get paid to do this. You wouldn't get paid to do this, some of you, if you didn't know what you're doing, at least somewhat. The people who don't know what they're doing generally don't come to my channel. The people who don't know what they're doing go follow the YouTubers that say you can get a job in UX with no skills, no qualifications. If you are watching me, you probably know what you're doing, or you're in the process of learning it. That's my target audience. If you made Deb personas, they're the Kips and the Maggies and the Peaches and the Pauls. That sounds like a band. So you probably know what you're doing. You deserve respect. You got the job. You don't have to be a dick about it. You don't have to be arrogant. You're low ego action hero, not high ego action hero. You're low ego. You are friendly. You are accessible. You are polite, but you know your shit. You with me? Kip says, is there an article that explains why design thinking absolutely sucks? Is that part of your episode about UX versus democratization? No, Kip. That is part of episode 50. Design thinking has jumped the shark. Please watch that one. Design thinking is an absolute garbage pile. We must burn it to the ground. And it works against us very badly. And it's part of the reason we don't have respect. Because people go, oh, design thinking. Well, I got a certificate in that. And that means I do what you do, right? Harshit says, thank you for the insights. We can continue with dinner in the next session. Yeah, thanks for staying up late, if your time zone's ahead of me. Thank you. And someone else said, I interviewed 30 people last month. I'm now collecting data to analyze. These nonverbal and behavioral observations are hard to gather. Is there any reference point materials to understand this aspect of research. I don't have a good reference on that. This was something that I've always been naturally good at. There are some things I am naturally good at, and there are many things I am naturally bad at. And I think I have good self-awareness about these. I am terrible at art, but I'm really good at reading people. So I didn't read a book about this, and I didn't learn about this. I would say if you want to get better at this, look at any books that are about cognitive psychology, books that are about reading people, books that are about deductive reasoning. That is where you're going to gather the nonverbal and stuff. But I have to admit, I'm not an expert in telling you where to go learn that, because it was just something I was born with. I think I was partially born with, and then partially I grew up around some not so great people, and I had to learn very quickly and very young who was lying to me. Turned out everybody, almost everybody but two people. So I had to read people, because in some ways my safety or survival or happiness depended on it. So that was something that I was kind of born with, that I really flexed a lot growing up. So I don't have a good way to say, and here's how you learn this, because I didn't. I think it's just in me, and it's not something I can turn off. Even my poor boyfriend over here would tell you I'm constantly assessing people and things around me and playing out possible outcomes. Some people don't like that about me, and some people do. And, the answer is date the one who does. So, for more reasons than that, you're beautiful. I'm talking to you, honey.
Oh,
hi. Hi. Boyfriend reveal at 1,000 subscribers. He's also threatening to wear a green shirt in front of my green screen so that he only has a head. And wear something green on your head. Oh, honey, you've got all the good ideas. He's the best. Did I get everything? Is there anybody who's waiting? I know we've gone super late today, but I don't mind staying when I don't have an appointment after this. I'm going to scroll back a little bit. So that was Abby, who said interviewed 30 people. And we could put that up on the screen quickly. Yeah, so I don't know how to tell you how to do that. There might be books on, I would say any book on like reading people would be helpful. Oh, Peaches, I'm not sure I ever completely got best way to prioritize research. No, I did answer that one. And Maggie sent lots of poop emoji today. Neha says thank you. Yeah, so that might be everybody for today. Whew, we made it. And that was just with like 15 of you. Wow, can you imagine when this grows into something bigger? I'm going to have to hire somebody to sort through questions and throw them at me. So of course, as always, won't you please tell people about my channel if they are serious about UX or getting into UX. I am not the crap channel that's going to say, oh God, just take a boot camp and read a book and you're going to get a great job. This is the reality channel. So send people my way. Please subscribe and ring the bell so you know when we're going live. Please empathize with the like button and press it so you can teach YouTube that I am somebody to recommend to more people. And let me just give you a few notes on some of the live streams that are coming up, because again, I do live stream 2 to 4 times a week, usually at the same time. 6:30 p.m. Italy time. I live in Italy. Where do you guys live? Don't give me the exact address. That would be bad. Just like a general country would be fine, or time zone. Tomorrow we have a podcast with a panel discussion. It's going to be neat. We've got hopefully 4 people joining. Hopefully everyone shows up. And we're going to be talking about startups, successes, failures, and warnings for people in startups or thinking of getting into them. So that's tomorrow. Then, mark your calendars for September 3rd. We are going to have the super awesome Andy Foote, a LinkedIn hero. He is going to be talking about building your personal brand and expressing it on LinkedIn specifically. So you guys, I know you want to know about that. I'm not streaming over the weekend. Monday is a holiday in America, so I'm going to take it off to work while y'all aren't looking. Got some trademarks to renew. Four Horsemen of Bad UX is due for renewal. So, going to work on that. Hey, next week we have some great podcasts coming up. Super excited. Of course, Tuesday will be Office Hours Ask Me Anything like this. We do this every Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be Joel Barr coming back as another special guest, and we are going to debunk bad UX portfolio advice that we keep seeing everywhere, especially in clickbaity Medium articles. Boo. Then won't you please mark your calendars for Thursday, September 10. I am bringing on my life and business coach who's been working with me since 2006, and we are going to talk about finding your life purpose. And I wanted to do this because a lot of people say to me, should I go into UX? Is UX a good career for me? And I say, I can't answer that. You've got to find your life purpose. Maybe UX is what you should be doing. Maybe it's not. But we'll talk about how you can find out, what your life purpose is, because I don't know. Stop asking me. What about mid-September? Monday, September 14th, I might be having someone on to talk about a bad boot camp experience they had. Make sure he's still up for that. Tuesday the 15th, Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday 16th, first-time guest Sam Harper will be on to talk about his super cool, very viral Medium article, which I think was about boot camps. So there you go. Post the ICS in the Slack. I do have a Google Calendar link, and I will go post that in the Slack after we shut down. But if you go to deltacx.com, I think it's under events and live stream podcasts. I have a link to a Google Calendar there, so you can always go there. Kip says, I love these events. Kip, are you new here? Have you been here before? Your name looks new to me. So thank you. I will post these things here. Kip says, love these events. Thank you, Kip. And Maggie says, me too. I always look forward to AMA Day. So AMA Day is every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Italy time, usually for an hour. Obviously, today we've gone almost an hour and a half, but I think we learned a lot about personas and a little bit about information architecture. And then, of course, the things that I call podcasts are usually on a more fixed topic, a more very specific topic. And I would say at least half the time they're interviews. Office Hours is always just me. Kip says Kip is new. Kip, I thought you were new. So good to sort of meet you. What else can I tell you? I think we're done. I'm officially out of energy. So everybody be well. I hope we'll see you tomorrow for our panel on startups. If you can't make that, remember all of these are always archived on YouTube, so come back and watch. Watch at 1.5x, watch at 2x, watch whatever speed works for you. Just watch. And please tell your friends, tell your UX pals, this is the place to go for no BS. And hopefully you don't mind some swear words. This is where you go to get the real UX love and the honest but tough love. A little bit of tough love over here in the Delta CX world. Peaches, I hope we'll see you again. And other than that, remember you can use this link all week round. If you think of another question, I'll answer those questions first. But we did it. So see everybody in the Slack room. See you on the podcasts, hopefully especially on Thursday for your personal brand and LinkedIn, because people ask me about that all the time, and I say, let's talk to the expert. So Andy will be here Thursday to talk about personal brand and LinkedIn. So if you ever wonder how the LinkedIn algorithm works and how to raise up the people you like and sink to the bottom the people you don't, we'll be talking about that. So, hey everybody. Have a great day or evening wherever you are. Be safe and healthy. Wear a mask, stay inside, do the right thing, and keep the questions coming. They're great questions. And remember, you guys are low ego action heroes, and you don't have to earn respect because nobody else at your job did. They got the job. You respected them. You assumed they knew what they were doing until they proved that they don't. So own it. I'm going to have to make a graphic for Own It. Maybe Maggie P has an idea. See you guys soon. Be well. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.